Welcome back to the Brick Restoration Podcast, Brick by Brick. My name is Robert. I am back here with Betty, the lovely owner of Brick Restoration.
Thank you,
So,
Robert.
tell us a little bit about your story, right? So, I think that, a lot of the times whenever we think of like construction, we think of like the macho man, right? Macho man in a hard hat. Well, you kind of break the norm, you're a woman in business. You're a woman in business and you're in business at basically a construction company,
Yeah,
right?
for sure.
So like tell us a little bit about the woman behind Brick Restoration.
Oh gosh. Okay. Basically this is just something that I started doing because I really wanted to help my family, right? I wanted to help my dad. I thought that I had business knowledge. I had gained business knowledge and education that he didn't have. And so I just knew that there was some things that I could do to help the business. But perfectly frank, I did not know anything about masonry when I started at Brick Restoration, 21 years ago.
How is that possible if you're 21?
Uh, Very nice. Thank you. Keep the compliments coming.
Yes.
But no, I started working part-time while I had my kids and really started on the business side of things, the financial side of things, the business side of things. But then, just realized, hey, this is something that if I'm going to continue to do and continue to help in I really just figured out I had a knack for running this business. I learned a lot about masonry and I've always been kind of a DIYer. I've always done my own. My husband and I are both very handy. So my dad taught me that. So we have always done, our own home projects, things like that. And so I just began really learning about masonry and even doing some of our masonry ourselves. My dad would come to our house and, we cut in a brand new door in our stucco garage. Right. Yeah. So we cut in a new walk-in door into our stucco garage and we did that together, laid pavers.
And I know you did most of the work.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. For sure. For sure. Actually, my dad was already pretty old by then.
Oh,
so,
really? Oh,
yeah,
so you did
so
do most of the
a
work?
lot of the work. I did the sawing and the cutting of the stucco. So yeah, I've done it. My husband too. My husband was there too, and we did it together. And same thing with pavers. We laid our own pavers, had to cut our own angles, our own 45s and stuff to lay the pavers. So we did that ourselves. We painted, not painted, but did the stripping, the paint stripping off of our masonry chimney.
Oh, so you know all about that.
So
then.
we've done a lot of the little things. I haven't built a brand new house or built a structure
but that's
fully
next.
out of brick. But that's coming. Yeah, as soon as retirement hits, I'll be building my own house. But no, yeah. So really just kind of went step by step, right? That's why I've been here for so long. I've been here for 21 years, working in some different capacities. And yes, for the last pretty much 5 years or so, I've been running the company from the top down. So I really love it. I actually think masonry is really interesting. I think that there's an architectural element to it that makes it really fun and design element to it that makes it really fun. And then the structural, the engineering part of it, of making sure that, the wall stays up and, how it's built and how houses are built and how buildings are built. I just find it fascinating. So I've learned everything I can about it. And I still learn every day. It's not like I know everything, but, I know quite a bit. I think that surprises people. Because,
go ahead.
No, I was just saying, because I'm a woman, but.
Well, you're also an inspiration to me, right? So like, I'm a first generation, American. I was born here, right? But my parents are from Mexico. So I've seen how they have taken advantage. No, I'm sorry. I see how they have, built their lives here, and, could you tell us a little bit about your journey, right? Like, I know that you're not from here, right?
Yeah,
but
no,
you have taken it in stride and you have really built this company up, from the ground up, making two locations and really transforming Brick Restoration to what it is today into this lovely studio, right?
Yes, fantastic. So I am an immigrant. I was born in Cuba and I came here when I was almost 2 years old. So I was a baby. So pretty much was raised here. And, the thing that my parents, really have achieved the American dream, right? And that just means, that they've been able to be the architects of their own lives here in this country by, my mom spent time building her own skills in dentistry. So she was a dental assistant. Before that, did the hard things too, right? Worked in a factory at night in order to, make a life for herself and my dad while my dad worked. My dad had all kinds of jobs, built a few businesses that didn't work out. And I saw all of that as I was growing up. So it really impacted me. And I knew that what I wanted to do, I didn't know I was going to do it at the family business, but I knew that what I wanted to do was work for small businesses and kind of, do something in small business. I also had a little stint where I wanted to go into politics or do something in
You would have been
government.
an amazing politician.
Oh, thank you. Well, there's still time, but the world is a little crazier than it was 25, 30 years ago when I thought about it. But no, I worked at the state capitol for a little while, and frankly, I was just like, this is boring. So I thought it was too boring. It just wasn't for me. So I really decided to go more the business route. And then after college, I graduated with a poli-sci degree and a minor in business, almost a double major, but didn't quite make it to the double major in business. But yeah, I went and worked for a small company doing payroll and tax, and learned a lot from them. And then I was able to bring that knowledge into this family business when I said, hey, I maybe don't want to work full time. I want to raise my kids, have kids and raise them. And so for the first about 10, 15 years, that's what I did, or 10 years. I basically was working behind the scenes at Brick Restoration and helping make the company more professional, helping make it financially stable, and just really doing all the back end kind of things that have built it into what it is, I think, today and has been for the last, 10 years or so.
And you touch a little bit about like the back end of brick restoration, right? So I kind of want to talk a little bit about that. We all say that, we're not, or I say, right, that we're not just some guy in a truck, right? People are in dedicated roles to handle customers in every kind of situation. Yeah. So, we have our amazing leadership, and then we have myself marketing, right?
Yes.
And then we have, like our front end, right? So like our office staff who's there to, answer the customer's phone calls, our sales team, which we call our specialists, right? Because they are, they're they're really knowledgeable in the craft of masonry. Right. And then we have our technicians outside. So, can you kind of explain, like what the benefit is to really having those specialized roles within the company? Because you would be surprised that you do not find that other industries. You have somebody who is wearing multiple hats. So there's cracks, right? There's cracks in their business's foundation, right? So could you talk a little bit about like the advantages to that and why customers should feel secure when they go with brick restoration and having all these people in those dedicated roles?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we started small too, right? Just my dad and maybe one other person just doing the work themselves and that sort of thing. But you realize that number one, you can only grow so far in that condition. So if you're doing a great job, which he was, you have to start farming out some of these duties, to other people, and hiring people and investing in your business in order to grow if you're providing a valuable service, which I think we were. And so, we our promise now is that when the phone rings, if you call our office and it's during office hours, you're going to get a live person on the phone. And that is a huge, let's say, benefit in this contracting or construction industry. Yeah. I mean, a lot of people don't even answer their phones. So, and it's because they're small, they can't, right? Or they just don't because they get tired. So our team is always there to answer the phone, answer questions. Our team is, split up or divided so that the customer gets the best experience throughout, and so that we're here after the project. So if something happens, you need a warranty work, or we have our 1-year warranty on all our work. You want to be able to call the company and know that they're still open. They're still there.
No, that's true. We get so many, not complaints, but, just comments about, hey, I had somebody else come out there or I had somebody else come out and do the work. I can't get a hold of them. The number's dead. Can you guys come out there and fix that? And I think that's a benefit. Just to know that like we're still there and we're still reliable.
And it's so sad, right? When you call, you get those phone calls and they're like, yeah, I went with this guy and he bought this material and he left it at my house and came and did work for 3 days and then I never saw him again. Right?
Yeah, and it's.
A lot of times that happens because these guys that are just 1 or 2 man operations, or they're subcontracting work, they don't understand their pricing, to be frank. And so if the minute that they find out that their job is not going to be profitable, or that they're, in the hole, they're out the door.
Oh.
Right? They'd rather walk away than keep throwing money into a sinking ship. And so the customer is the one that's left holding the bag, right? And then we have to come in, or, some other professional company actually comes in and finishes the work. And they're like, oh, so that's why, I only paid $5,000 for this $10,000 job, but, the guy walked away after I had already paid him $2,500,
Right,
So
right.
now I'm end up paying more than I would have if I had just hired you guys in the first place. So it happens. I mean, people are making the best decisions they can, right, with their budget. And we're as cost effective as we can be. And I think we're competitive with people that are in our industry with our expertise.
Right. Well, as we're talking about our, our future and our past and our history, right? In our 30 years of business, we have always, we've always strived to provide that 5-star service. But sometimes, blub-ups happen, right?
Yeah.
Are there any interesting stories that you want to share? Is there anything that you kind of want to get into the nitty-gritty of?
We have great customers. I mean, really, we have great staff too, and they are taught that you want to set realistic expectations,
Yeah.
and also under promise and over deliver.
Of course, yeah.
Right. So when we say our brand promise that we have an undetectable repair, right? I like to say we have an undetectable repair at a glance. And the reason I add at a glance is because we are doing a repair. It's not new construction. If you or I know exactly where the work was done, we might be able to pick it out. But someone walking by and, coming up to the front of your home or walking by the wall should never be able to see where the work was done. It's kind of like, if your husband or your wife, if you ever have a facelift, they might be able to tell, right? But a good facelift.
I would hope that they would be able to tell if they're your husband or your wife.
But, a good facelift, your neighbors should never know, right? Your family, your friends.
You'd be the talk of the
know.
town, though.
Right.
You'd be the talk of the town.
Well, yeah, there are those, of course, also. So yeah, that's, just setting up realistic expectations with the customers. I think the most difficult customers are just the ones that don't have realistic expectations. And, we just remind them, hey, this is a repair. This is not new construction. Masonry is not intended to be looked at from, inches away. It's meant to be looked at from, walking down the street or walking up to your home. They're 99% of the time, they're amazed and flabbergasted at how they know where the crack is and they can't even find it.
Oh yeah.
Right. They know where the repair was and they can't even find it.
I would answer the phone a lot, right? And that's probably the first thing that people say is that they're like, wow, I am amazed. Well, first they say, wow, this is awesome. And the second thing they say is, where do I pay? So,
yeah, great. That's fantastic. Yeah.
So, I think that's good, that we've been able to come up, or have that reputation, so let's talk a little bit about, our different kinds of customers, right? Specifically property managers. Yeah. So a property manager is somebody who, works closely with an HOA and, they are the first, line of defense in terms of getting some of these repairs done. And, aside from, they're responsible for everything, right? So like HVAC, the alarm systems, fire alarm systems, the pool maintenance, all those things are covered by what a property manager would do. But something that kind of goes forgotten about is the masonry on these communities, right? So I'm talking the perimeter fences. I'm talking monument signs. I'm talking about clubhouses.
Yeah.
I'm a new manager. I go around and I see rusting on my fence. I see, cracks along the columns. Like, what are some of the warning signs or some of these like first initial flags, like for people to be aware of? And are there options for me to go into that way I can get a better insight of my community?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely want to talk about the perimeter fences. Can I just talk about the property managers first and kind of our role with them?
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead.
All right, great. No, I know you work closely with property managers.
Yeah.
And I mean, we like to build strong relationships, right, with our property managers because we know that they are the front lines. I think you just said that,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Like
yeah.
they are on the front lines.
First line of defense.
Yes,
Yeah.
they're the first line of defense. So they need the education. They need to know who their partners are, right? Who can they go to for answers to their questions when
Like
they're
we just said, you know, they want somebody like you can rely on, just like a homeowner, because
right.
if they call somebody up and they're not answering, well, then they're in the same boat, right?
Exactly.
So, you know, they're people too.
Right. So we are there to be reliable, right? We're there to answer their questions. We're there to hold their hand through the process. So just, talking about property managers, I just wanted to kind of emphasize that we really value those relationships. We're very much want to be partners with property managers who want to provide great service to their HOA boards.
And that should be all of them.
That should be all of them, yes. And there are a lot of great ones out there. And I think if you were a new manager, that's where your mind should go, which is who are the people in the city that I can rely on to go get answers to my questions, right? Who are the people that are going to provide my communities with the best service, because it's going to reflect well on them.
No,
right?
that's true. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah.
You know, because they have to adhere to not only their supervisor at the company, but also their board, right?
Oh, yeah.
Which is all the homeowners, right? And then they're gonna have to answer and say, hey, you know, like what is the status of, you know, like this current repair on my home, or what is the status of the fence, you know?
Yeah.
So, you know, I would just ask you again, like, is there a way for people to get a better insight of their community?
Yeah. So going back to your question about the perimeter fences. So yes, whenever you have, if you're a property manager and you are in charge of a community, you might be in charge of a single family residential neighborhood. A lot of times in Houston and Dallas, especially, we have these beautiful brick perimeter fences, right? In Dallas, sometimes they're called screen walls that go around the neighborhood. And those 9 times out of 10 or 99% of the time, those are the responsibility of the HOA, the Homeowners Association. So you as the manager are responsible for making sure that the HOA is budgeting for any repairs, maintenance, those kinds of things. And those fences are wonderful. They're beautiful, but they do need some attention, right? So that they stay in good shape and your community doesn't end up in a situation where they have to demo and rebuild this multi-million-dollar fence that they have.
Right. And you know, just going back on like as far as like the fences go, is this, you know, we can kind of touch a little bit about how people should budget, right? But something I kind of want to talk about that I don't think that it's very common, but a lot of people don't address it, is vehicular accidents with these fences.
Oh, yeah.
So, you know, a lot of the times we'll get these calls and it'll say, hey, like a car just went through my fence. Like, what do I do? Right. Betty, could you give us a little insight on like, hey, like I'm a manager. I'm woken up in the middle of the night. It's 3 a.m. Some drunk driver just went through my community's fence. What are some of these action items that I need to take? And like, you know, how can I make sure that, hey, like I still, you know, like I can still appear to my board that I have control over this.
You're
you
under
know?
control.
Yeah,
exactly.
You know, like
You've got it handled.
because I don't want to be flailing and
Right.
something else could happen, right? So what could I do?
Sure. I mean, I would say step number 1 is definitely, give us a call. And if you have a handyman, someone should put up a temporary fence, hopefully do some cleanup. A lot of times, unfortunately, I see that property managers will have one of those accidents happen, and then, the debris just stays there for days and days and days, weeks and weeks sometimes.
That's a hazard on its own.
And that's a hazard,
Yeah.
right? And it's just an eyesore for the community. So we have a service where if you give us a call, if you send pictures or we can at least get some kind of measurement, we can try to get at least the temporary fencing and the cleanup done for you within 24, 48 hours, right? Just depending on, how damaged it is or what the problem is.
And what are we talking about in terms of price for that?
It really depends on the community, where it is, how quickly we need to get out there and that sort of thing. But you're talking about maybe, $1,000 for a typical one panel, has gotten hit. We're not going to do all of the demo, but we're just going to at least secure it, make it safe, and just put either, sometimes you can put plywood up, sometimes we'll put temporary fencing up. It just really depends on what the situation calls for. So yeah, I mean, the first step is to secure the customer or the resident's home, right? Their backyard again. That'll help make you, the hero of the moment for sure. And then as far as when that happens, if it's a hit and run, you're not ever going to know maybe who it is. And, a lot of times insurance doesn't cover that. But we can come in, we can demolish and rebuild those panels, columns, anything that needs to be done. And we can set it up so that when those repairs are done, the community looks good, because if we can't find the brick, we'll stain it to match. So
you would think that if a car hit a wall, though, I don't think they'd be running anywhere.
Well, yeah, probably not. The car's probably there.
You're probably good on that front.
If it's blown up the wall, the car's definitely still there.
But and that's something that happens all the times, and not just with fences, right? But also monuments. That's another thing, and mailboxes, community mailboxes, clubhouses, So like anybody's just going home, like after a night at the bar, and they just accidents happen, and
they shouldn't be driving if they're drinking.
Well, yeah, but people are people,
yes.
and like those things happen, unfortunately, right?
Yeah.
So or it could just be anybody. But just going back to the fences, before we talk a little bit about the staining, but like, is there like something that we throw around is, is there some type of, inspection or some type of like service that we would offer to really get the full assessment of somebody's fence, right? Again, I'm a new property manager. Is there something that, would be a resource for me to know that we offer?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one of the things that we're really proud of is our fence restoration program that we've come up with. This is another proprietary service product that we offer. And because we know that these communities don't even know what asset they have in their perimeter fences. They don't know how many panels they have. They don't know how long their fence is. So how can you budget for repairs if you don't have the information that you need? So our perimeter fence program basically starts with an assessment of your fence, and that's very cost effective. We just come out, or we don't just come out, but we come out and we do a thorough panel by panel inspection of the fence. And it's basically a report that you're going to get that's going to tell you exactly what the condition of every panel is, how many panels you have. We actually tag them with a number system. So that way, if you ever have an issue with a particular panel, you're not going to have to say, oh, it's a panel on this road. I don't know. Go look for it. You're going to know what number it is. You can say, hey, I need work on panel number 57. There's an issue going on there. Your residents will know that too. So they can report it to you. And everybody, can just work with a much more efficient process. The assessment is very cost effective, like I said. And with our assessment, whenever we do that report and the walking of the fence and all that, you also get a sample panel fully restored or fully repaired. So if you walked around your community and you see, hey, I think this fence needs some attention, but you're not exactly sure what to do with it, that assessment is a great first step.
Some of the things, to also keep in mind too is like where exactly, what are the like, because we talk about curb appeal, right? Same thing would apply to somebody's fence, right? Like, so the entrance to your community, like if you notice that the entrance of the community has a panel that could potentially be repaired, that could be salvaged, that, looks unsightly, people look at that, especially if they want to live in that community. So, like my suggestion would be to, take a look at the front of your community. If you notice that there's a panel that's failing, give us a call. We can go out there, take a look at it and provide you with the assessment. And then we would prioritize that panel as doing that one for the sample panel, depending on the condition of it, of course. But, it would be, that would be my first priority if I was a manager, right?
Yeah. I mean, you definitely want the fence, or it's the first thing that people see, right? Is your monument signs and then the perimeter fence around it. So, yeah.
Something. Oh, gosh. Sorry. Busy guy. Okay. So we talked a little bit about the fences, right? But let's talk about the beasts that they are, right? There are a couple different kinds of fences.
Yeah.
So what are some of these telltale signs? I'll just break them down for you, right? So we have a single width fence. There's a double width fence. Right. And then there is a prefabricated concrete fence, like these things that are made out of cast, right? And
Right.
then you have like these wooden planks. Could you give a little insight on these types of fences?
Sure, sure. The most common one that you're going to find in higher end neighborhoods is the single width perimeter fence. Basically, those are just built with one brick thick panels, and the columns are really the trick behind these fences, because the columns are built with pockets so that those brick panels, can fit inside the pockets, and the columns almost never fail because they should have very deep concrete piers into the ground. And so the panel itself, the brick panel itself, is usually floating. It means it's above the air. So it allows water and roots and everything to kind of flow underneath the panel. They can be a very long lasting design. And they're a great fence, but they do need maintenance. So that's one of the things that we recommend, is doing an assessment, getting the fence restored as needed, or if you have problems along the whole fence, we definitely recommend getting the entire fence restored. But we can work with everyone's budget, and then we offer a maintenance plan, right? So after we've done the restoration, we don't want you guys or the community to leave it alone for another 10 years and then find out 10 years later, oh, there's more touch-up work that needs to be done,
Right.
or there's more panels that are failing. So we actually recommend a very inexpensive maintenance plan, which is, kind of a continuation of keeping your fence in good condition year over year.
So, going back to, like these types of fences, right?
hmm
Is there any kind of benefit to, having a brick fence versus a concrete fence?
it's really preference of what the community offers. If you have an option of whether you're going to put in a brick fence or a concrete fence, the truth is prefabricated concrete fences are only installed by a few companies overall in the United States. So you're kind of tied to them for the rest of the life of your community, and hopefully they have the same panel style that your community worked
Oh, I
with
didn't even think
originally.
about that
Yeah,
because they could discontinue it,
they can discontinue it. Yeah, they can change the styles. The company can go out of business.
Right.
And then you have this fence that maybe needs some repairs, but you don't have, it's impossible to find the material, right? That the same prefab panels to install. So brick, there's always going to be brick. Brick is hard to find sometimes. Brick can be discontinued too. But at least we have the option of staining it, finding the closest matching brick and then staining it to match, so that when someone drives by your community, they don't say, "Oh, it looks like a patchwork quilt of brick," because of the community is 30 years old and they've had repairs done at various times.
You keep mentioning like staining brick, like for the purposes of doing these repairs.
hmm
Could you kind of elaborate
Yeah.
a little bit on that? And like, so what exactly is stained brick? The other thing that we also throw around is cloning brick.
Yeah.
For these discontinued
hmm
or for these discontinued brick on these homes, that you'll kind of see on like these older buildings, on these historical buildings, or even if somebody's doing a remodel, right? If they do an addition to a house, a lot of the times the homeowner will want the same exact brick. So could you kind of give us a little insight on brick staining?
Sure, sure. I mean, if we can find the same brick, that's a great idea. Even when you find the same brick, though, sometimes the run can be different. So even though you might officially have the right name of the brick, it might still need some additional touch up in order to really match what you're trying to match to. So a lot of times, whenever we're doing repairs, staining is just included as part of the process, because we know that when we're gonna, if we're gonna cut open a hole in your wall for whatever reason, the brick that we might find might not match exactly. So we'll go back and we'll kind of stain the bricks with special masonry stains that we also custom match and custom have proprietary products for, and the goal is that when you walk by it or when you look at it from a normal distance, you're not going to be able to tell which is the patch and which is the original brick that you had. So same thing with those perimeter fences, right? If a car blows up one of those panels, you might not be able to find that brick again. And so we'll find the closest matching brick, And then we have the option of staining it for you so that your community can look like nothing ever happened.
And you can attest to this because, like, I've been on a couple job sites where they've stained the brick on site,
Hmm.
right? I mean, and the reason why I bring this up is because I just recently saw one and it had just got demoed by a car. So, this process is really meticulous. It can't be done just by anybody. I don't recommend it being DIY'd because they really do take their time with making sure that the color matches as precisely as we could possibly get it. They even match
Yeah.
some of the splotches that are on there.
I was going to say, because brick is not one color
Right.
typically, right? It's got some texture, it's got some variation. So our guys are real artisans, right? They find the base color and then they add the additional kind of textures and features that the brick has so that it blends together with the surrounding area.
And I've seen,
Hmm.
I mean, I've seen it. I've been blown away by the results.
Yeah.
Just by doing that, you also say that, like they're artisans in their craft. Do
Hmm.
you feel like, anybody could kind of DIY this kind of stuff, or like, is it something that should be left to a professional?
Oh yeah,
Because
yeah, I would definitely say, professional, professional. It's like you wouldn't, you wouldn't paint your own mural, or like paint your own portrait unless you're an artist.
somebody would.
If you're an artist and you can paint your own portrait, more power to you. So you can probably paint your own brick too. But
And are those masonry stains like at Home Depot? Like, could anybody just have access to them?
no, we use our own specialty, stains that we create. So another proprietary product that we just have. And our guys are also, of course, specially trained, so they know how to do it. And not everyone on our team are master stainers. We have some people that really have an eye for it, and those are the people who we call upon at those times. So.
So we've talked about the fences. Let's talk a little bit about like monument signs, right? So I think that that's another thing that kind of not gets forgotten about, whenever we're talking about like the masonry on the communities, but like, I think that there's a real like art in like the presentation and the style of some of these things. Have you seen any kinds of styles of like monument signs where you're like, wow, like this looks amazing, like I would recommend this to any community? Or like are there like some cost effective ones that you would probably go to? Like what are your take on monument signs?
Yeah. Monument signs are expensive, right? But they're the front face of your community, right? It kind of sets the tone. So monuments can be as simple as just as far as masonry, as just a small double brick wall with maybe metal signage. It can be as elaborate as, huge, 50-foot monument signs, 50 by 10 feet tall, and large cast stone inserts. So obviously the price can really vary, and the detail or the look of it can vary. What we recommend is if you're going to completely change your monument sign, you should talk to an architect, landscape architect. They can design it for you and get all of the licensing and permitting for like the structural engineering report, soil tests, those kinds of things that have to be done. And that's if you're creating something new or you're replacing something with a completely different style. If you just had the car run into it or the monument sign just needs a refresh, we can, take care of that without any permitting or anything like that, because we're just doing we're just building over the exact same footer. There's no structural changes to it. We can do that pretty simply. But it's a good opportunity, if you ever, do have a damaged monument sign, to kind of look at what other options there might be out there. I do want to talk a little bit about our monument restoration, because sometimes your monuments really, they last a long time because they're made out of masonry.
And we'll get those calls sometimes, and they'll say, "Hey, like there's a couple cracks in here. Like our community's thinking about completely revitalizing our
Right.
signs, And I always say, "Hey, well, you mentioned a couple cracks, maybe in the cast stone. You mentioned a couple cracks, like here in the brick, here and there. You can really consider, maybe potentially just restoring the
Restoring
monument
it, yeah.
versus completely doing a redo." But I
Right.
want to hear your take on it, because
Yeah.
I feel like that's kind of everybody's go-to, right? Doing this full replacement whenever it's not necessary.
Right, exactly. And sometimes, really all it needs is a good power washing, crack repair, tuck pointing, the mortar, and maybe, either a new cast stone insert or just even painting the existing cast stone, with our, like I said, the cast stone restoration, the resurfacing that we can do. and then painting the letters, right? So if you have a nice sign to begin with, or you had a nice sign and it's just dirty or it's, cracked or just kind of looks a little bit worn, our restoration makes them look like they're brand new.
And what are we talking about in terms of cost versus doing a full replacement? Because these monument signs can go into the thousands, right?
Oh, they can go into the hundreds of thousands
Oh,
if
I
they're
didn't even
big.
know that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Just
I mean,
depending on the size.
like,
So.
and especially if you want to do something like, because consider this, right? Like, if you have two entrances to the community, you're going to be looking at these two same monument signs, right?
Mhm.
So take that cost, double it by 2 or 3 or however many entrances you
Right.
have, right? So, like, is it comparable? Like,
Oh yeah, I mean the restoration is a fraction of the cost. I mean it's very, very affordable. I definitely would say if you're considering replacing the monuments, maybe even just do the restoration first and see how the community likes it, because that's going to save a lot. If the community is really um, just really strong on replacing the monument with something new, then you just budget for it and make sure that you contact those landscape architects so they can give you options, right, of what the design can look like.
And just circling back to, whenever I was talking about like our dedicated roles, right?
Hmm.
Like, can you talk a little bit about how brick restoration plays into building the relationship with not only the property manager, but with the board, right? Because we'll get requests all the time too, like, hey, like, I'm the property manager, but I deal with X, Y, and Z, right? Sometimes I don't have the expertise or like
Hmm.
to emphasize how important some of these masonry structures are for the community. Can you give us a little bit of insight about like, like what the
Yeah.
expectation would be from the board to our specialists and to the company, as far as, making sure that they're properly explained
Right.
what these things are for?
Right. That's why I think it's so important that we that property managers really see us as their partner. We want to make them shine, right? We want to make the property manager shine. And if you bring us into the board meeting to talk about the perimeter fence and what's wrong with it and how it can be repaired, or the monument signs and the options and what the process looks like, or you want to bring us in because your clubhouse needs repairs and you just want an expert opinion or an expert discussion, we're happy to come in and be a part of the board meetings, whether they're after hours or they're off-site or anything like that. We can bring someone in, we can do them by Zoom. But I think that having an expert in your meetings is really a way to add value to your own service as a property manager, so that the HOA feels like, oh, wow, they're really bringing in, experts. And it doesn't have to be, based on our proposal. It can just be, you need some expert guidance.
Right, and not to sway opinions, right? But even if you get like proposals, right? That's why we always talk about the right choice.
Hmm.
You want to go into those things, making sure that you're educated and making sure that you're informed, because again, not discounting the work that the two guys in a truck can do, right? But it's really the education, right? Making sure that there's a reason for these things, not just going beyond like the aesthetics, right? But like the safety, just in the same way that people check on like like the fire alarms and the sprinkler systems,
Right.
making sure that those masonry structures are still around, prevents further collateral damage. Like if there was nothing in place and that car was just to go straight through. We have seen instances where, like lives are lost and like, like property is just, just down this
Destroyed.
drain,
Right.
like,
Right.
so,
Well, and for property managers, one of the difficulties is that, if you put out a project to 3 different contractors, you're going to get 3 completely different scopes and 3 completely different approaches to whatever you're looking at. If it's particularly perimeter fences, one company may tell you, nope, you got to start from scratch. It's demo and rebuild the whole thing. Another company might be like, oh, yeah, we can come in and just repair these small minor cracks. And then you've got our company coming in and saying, hey, we think we can do a full restoration. And how is that different? And how are those 3 options different? It's not just on price. It's like you said, it's on the longevity of the results. It's on, who's going to be here when there's an issue down the road, right? And which is really the one that's adding the most value to the community
right.
and the best bang for your buck.
So, we've gone into depth about these fences. We talked about the monument signs. We talked a
Hmm.
little bit about the clubhouses. Let's really talk about, let's kind of circle back into some broader things, right? Other things that people would see around their
Hmm.
house, particularly stucco. Now, stucco is, gosh, you would see stucco really more like in these coastal, right?
Hmm.
Coastal as Americans can get in
Yeah.
these coastal climates like in Florida, because that's just a popular style, right? But
Hmm.
like you see those emerging stucco houses here in Houston and in Dallas. Can you give a little insight on like, what exactly is, because it's a type of masonry, right? But you take a different approach with stucco versus brick. So could you give a
Oh,
little insight on that?
yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's you can't just because you're a mason doesn't mean you know how to do stucco. So yeah, I mean, stucco is very popular now. It kind of has a little bit more modern of a look. So a lot of houses are mixing stucco and brick or stucco and stone. In Houston, it is a difficult material to do right. So we do a lot of stucco repairs because the original contractor maybe didn't do a great job or didn't do it correctly at all. And so the stucco is failing. So we're really good at identifying what's going on and again, trying to keep it as cost effective as possible. Just because you have a stucco home doesn't mean it's going to be bad news for sure for you, but you might have some issues in certain spots or certain areas. And we can come and, fix those areas for you so that overall your house looks great, and you can still have the stucco home.
Is there like any kind of, like benefits having stuck on your home? Like, is it able to be painted? Is it like what really separates it from these other types of masonry?
Yeah, I mean, you can paint stucco. Really, a better option rather than painting stucco is to do like a new finish coat, like an acrylic based finish coat, um,
Is that
which
something we do? Oh,
that's something we do.
okay.
Yes, Robert, we do that. Absolutely. So stucco finish coats. It's just basically a new painted stucco, but it's an actual new finish coat. So it can cover up any minor cracks that are in the stucco, like little hairline cracks. We of course would fix any major cracks first. But that's a way to change, the color of your stucco without painting it. But yes, I mean you can paint stucco, and it doesn't have as many issues with paint as brick does because it's just one. It's one homogeneous panel or material.
Right.
So whereas brick, you've got brick and you've got mortar and you've got cracks or spaces that are different. So it's paint isn't as conducive to brick, but stucco it works just fine.
So anybody with these like stucco homes, like what would you give to like, or what would you suggest to a homeowner if they see any of these types of cracking appear? Like what are some of these first steps, and like who do you think they should like consult, right?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. I mean
and
stucco.
could this be DIY'd,
Yeah, I mean anything can be DIY. Doesn't mean it should be.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean these stucco cracks. In Houston, you're gonna get settlement. You're gonna probably get cracking in your stucco at some point. Usually, when we repair it, we like to say, "Hey, we can repair the cracks, but no matter, I don't care how good you are. If you just repair a crack in stucco, you're probably going to notice a slight scar." So we usually do recommend finishing a new finish coat, at least from control joint to control joint. So a lot of times you'll see, if it's done correctly, that the stucco will have kind of different panels. And we recommend at least doing one whole panel, finish coat, so that you can, so that the repair is not as noticeable.
We
Mhm.
also see a lot of emerging trends, right? So we've seen like the painted brick houses, we've seen like
Yes.
stucco. Are there any kind of, interesting, for as long as you've been around, in your tenure, would you say that there's any kind of emerging trends that you see that are kind of interesting?
Yes. It's really interesting because, for so long, it's been a big trend to have the white house with the black windows. So we participate in that as much as we do with our slurry and deco washes and that sort of thing. But recently, I've been seeing a lot more of dark brick. So we're seeing a lot of like red brick with dark mortar, or even monotone brick and mortar. So if you have a cream colored brick, using cream colored mortar, or if you have even a black brick with black mortar or charcoal mortar. So it's a little bit more subtle, and I think maybe has even a little bit more modern look. But you're still getting the brick and the stone and all that.
And what's the kind of look they're trying to achieve with that? Like, I don't know. Like to me, I'm like, as well as much as anybody else, right? Like I love the classic, like light mortar with that dark brick, right? But like really, like what are they trying to go for?
I think it can be. I think for in today's day and age, I think that little bit more homogeneous look is a little bit more modern. So I think that's what they're doing. And example, similar as the reason that they pick stucco, right? Because
Right.
it's got a little bit more of that homogeneous look or shades. What is that called? Monochromatic?
Yeah, monochromatic. Yeah,
monochromatic.
yeah.
So a little bit more monochromatic look, but still going with the brick because the texture is really interesting. So it almost makes you focus less on the brick color, but more on the brick texture. So that's interesting.
Going back into like, like bringing brick into the house, right? So like, could these similar styles be emulated with say like, like a fireplace or like, these accent walls? Could you give a little, insight on that maybe? Like, is that something that you would want to take inside too, like that homogeneous look, that monochromatic look that we were talking about?
Yeah, I'm considering even doing a wall in my house.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I'm thinking about it. I'm not sure, but yeah, no, I mean, I think it would look great. I remember one project we recently did where we did a fireplace, and we did it with black stone. And
oh, they had this
yes,
tile.
they had tile.
They had this tile fireplace.
Yes.
And no offense, but I was like, this looks
very 1980s.
crazy.
I can't even tell you what decade, but a very 1980s,
Like
glossy black.
It looked like
tile.
it's supposed to be in the bathroom.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. And then we tore down the tile and refaced it with this cool kind of black quartzite stone. And then we did the hearth in a black brick with black mortar.
Right.
And that looked really cool. I thought it looked fantastic.
I think that's a great example of
yeah.
bringing those elements inside, because to me, I that wouldn't even been my suggestion. I would have said, hey, take a look on the outside and then do that.
And match what's on the
Right,
outside. Yeah,
right.
but this is totally different, but it worked. It works really nicely.
I don't know what they were going for, but I love it.
Yeah, it looks fantastic. It looks fantastic.
So, something else too are like these, that's kind of emerging, are, redoing your backyard and doing your pavers and doing your patio. So like, are there any kinds of trends there maybe that you've been seeing? Are people kind of stepping away from that? I know that something that's really popular is kind of simulating that like English countryside style with a big concrete slab and aggregate around it. What are your takes on some of those kinds of things? You know?
I mean, there's so many options available to you, outdoors. Outdoor kitchens are still pretty common. So doing a nice masonry, large outdoor kitchen is really common. Fire pits, are still pretty common. Masonry fire pits, like stone. Those are always fun to have, just a good gathering spot.
And a great thing to talk about too, like I've seen a couple and we've done a couple, right? And, I think that really, having that focal point, just like, kind of the same thing that what a fireplace serves in inside, right?
Yeah.
But like you said, just like a meeting point, but like, anything else really that you kind of see outside or,
anything that is, I think the outside, just like the inside, after 20 years, you kind of need an upgrade or some kind of remodel done to it. So anything that has to do with masonry remodeling, I mean, I just love it all, right? Whether it's your fireplace, you have an old brick fireplace that maybe you painted, right? and you're like, this just doesn't fit anymore, or I'm just tired of looking at this. I just love saying, hey, we're going to work with your fireplace, like the structure of it, but we're going to reface it, right, with stone or a new brick or other options. We can even do stucco. So I love the fireplace remodels, inside or outside.
Yeah.
Outdoor surface remodels too. Like maybe you had some flagstone benches and it's just gotten worn and you either want to restore the flagstone, make it look beautiful again, or maybe you want to use like bluestone, or you want to, maybe you had a a paver patio and you say, you know what, I want to do brick because it's got more texture, and I want to do a herringbone pattern, or just give it a little bit more updated or modern look. So all kinds of things. I mean, there's so many options, and now we have Pinterest and House and
Yeah.
Instagram and all these
There's no
places.
shortage of places for people to get these
Ideas,
ideas, and
right, right.
I already know we're open to like exploring those, but I'm shocked at the, I guess, the amount of like thought that people kind of give their house, which is kind of
Yeah.
nice. So going back on, some of these like home repairs, right? So when we talk about building relationships with not just the property managers, but with our business partners, right? So like if you're out there, right? So
Mhm.
anybody in plumbing and window and door companies,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Like they're not limited on, or we're not limited to helping them out too, right? So
Oh, yeah, we have
could
lots of great relationships with some really reputable window and door companies, roofers. We have some roofers, and we all mutually help each other, right? Because we're in completely different industries. And so, a lot of times we're aware of roofing issues that the homeowner wasn't even aware of because we're up there looking at the chimney,
Oh yeah,
right?
yeah. I didn't
Or
even
vice
think about
versa.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Could we kind of just do like a flash round, right? Where we kind of talk about like this is the industry, and then this is how we can help them, right?
oh, sure.
Okay, alrighty.
Okay.
So let's start easy, right? So okay,
Uh-huh.
so window and door people, how can we help them?
Well, whenever someone wants to replace their windows or their doors or upgrade, having new construction windows put in is just a really beautiful option, like as opposed to just replacement windows. So when you're doing new construction windows or you're changing the size of your windows, then you definitely need a masonry company if you have brick. To come out and teeth out the windows, teeth out the space. So then the window installer can install the new windows, and then we can come back and close up the space properly and make it all look like nothing ever happened.
Right. And if
Yeah.
they're not able to be salvaged, you would also need a mason to potentially go out
Yeah.
and find that brick,
Right.
potentially stain that brick, right?
Right. Exactly.
Let's talk about plumbers. How do we help plumbers?
Yeah, plumbers and us make a great team because, a lot of times, especially when we've had those freezes and things,
Oh
I mean, pipe
yeah, that we get
spray.
them all the time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
plumbers, come in. I mean, their job is urgent usually. And so sometimes they'll tear out a big hole in the masonry because that's the easiest way to get to the plumbing. Sometimes it's better to actually access the wall from the outside than even from the inside because it's less disruptive.
Right, right.
And then we can come in and same thing, teeth out the bricks and then when we reinstall the bricks, we do our staining and our magic to make sure that it all matches.
Okay. Foundation companies.
Foundation companies. I mean, it's a natural
That is
relationship.
bread and butter.
Yeah,
That is bread
it's a
and
natural
butter.
relationship. I mean, we go to a customer's house and we see, oh my goodness, this person obviously has foundation issues. We have recommendations that we give of companies that we work closely with. And I know that customers, I know they do the same for us. So they come in, fix the foundation, and there's movement on the house. And usually there's a lot of cracking. So we'll come in after the foundation is repaired and repair the cracks. I don't think I'm offending anyone by this, but foundation companies should probably not do the crack repairs themselves. There's a few companies
Why
out
do you
there.
say that?
Well, it's like the same reason we don't do foundation work, right?
Oh,
It's like
well,
we
yeah.
have, I mean, our crews do the masonry, the brick repairs, but let's leave the foundation repair to the foundation experts, and let's leave the brick repair to the brick experts.
I don't think
Um,
that's too far off to say, like
yeah,
you could say that about anything.
I,
Like same thing how we wouldn't replace a pipe.
right,
Same thing
exactly.
how
We're
we
not
wouldn't
plumbers.
replace a shingle.
Yeah,
Even though we're on the roof doesn't mean I'm gonna
right.
change out a shingle, right?
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
How about electricians? I don't know. Like
Yeah, I mean, electricians, same thing. If you're gonna run, sometimes pool equipment or something like that, and you have some repairs that need to be made to the masonry, I mean, we can definitely help out. I think electricians often go inside the house, like through the inside of the
right,
house.
right.
One place that electricians that we work closely with them would be if they're adding lighting to some of the masonry. So, like if you have a new outdoor kitchen and you're putting in appliances or you're putting in lighting or something like that.
Or even on those monument signs.
Or in monument signs a
and
lot,
with those
yeah,
lighting
too.
fixtures. Yeah.
Exactly. So there's a lot of different contractor trades that sometimes have to be involved with any kind of new construction. So
How about interior and exterior remodelers.
Yeah, I mean, designers, like we love working with designers because they have a really clear vision of what they want or what they think is going to look great. And then we can, help make that happen. Sometimes homeowners don't really know what they want. And I think when they're not working with a designer, they can sometimes get scared off because of all the choices. And we try to guide them, but we're not designers. Same thing. We want to work. We want to partner with designers that we can help make their vision come to life,
And
right?
and how about like people who work on historical buildings? How can brick restoration be an asset to them?
Yeah, I mean, well, that now we're talking, designers/architects, right? We also have close relationships with architects too, historical preservation societies that really need expert tradesmen to be working on these buildings because there's a lot of requirements from the city or from the preservation societies on what types of materials and what type of techniques. And you can't always find, of course, the brick, but also, the type of the type of mortar that they used. And so we can, you really want somebody who's going to replicate it. And again, make the building look like it was supposed to look like, not, like it's just been patched up with whatever.
And like what are some of those regulations that, we would be able to adhere to, but maybe you wouldn't be able to find somewhere else, like again, we keep saying it, it's no offense to anybody, but some guy in a car, right? Like
Yeah.
obviously, it would be better to go with a professional
Hmm.
to handle these, historical restorations, but are there any kinds of, like things that people should be aware of, if they're ever in the position of potentially restoring these things. So like if you
Yeah.
ever work in a church or if you're in a historical building,
Hmm.
what are some of these things to keep in mind?
Yeah, I mean, well, one of the things is our insurance, right? You have to make sure that the people who are working on these properties are properly insured. General liability, workers' comp, which we are. Your check in a truck is not necessarily going to, to have that. Additionally, a lot of times these types of projects require specialty equipment not just to do the repair, but just to access the areas. So booms, swing stage lifts. I'm blanking on the other thing, but scaffolding,
Right.
those kinds of things. And it's better to not have just anyone on those projects. Most of our guys have gone through boom certification, scaffolding certification, swing stage, those kinds of certification, forklifts, all those things. So you really want to make sure that the people on those job sites are very safe. A lot of times those are in high traffic city centers,
Oh yeah. Yeah.
that are densely populated. You want to make sure your street access and your right of way and everything is taken care of. So we're familiar with all of that and can make the process as seamless as possible, for these complex projects.
I really thank you for your insight. I do want to hop on to Reddit problems.
Okay, fun.
Just take a look at the time here. But before we do, I want to throw it to you. Like, is there anything that's, kind of just stands out to you that you feel is, underrepresented? Maybe it's a problem that a lot of people have, but maybe they don't know that we do, right? Like, is there something that kind of goes to your mind?
Let me think. We've touched on a lot of things.
Yeah.
I think one confusion or one thing that I would say, maybe the thing we should talk about is what we're not good at. I know that's unusual. What are we not good at?
Oh gosh. That list is short.
I know it is short. It is short, but I think it's important that when you want work done on your home, you select the right type of contractor for it. We are great at most masonry, but like, for example, large concrete projects. The truth is there are some great concrete contractors out there, some not so great ones too. And we can subcontract out some of our contractors that we know and we feel really comfortable with to do larger concrete projects. But that's something that you probably want to hire a concrete contractor for. Also, like very large new paver projects. There's some great paving contractors out there. Or street paving, those kinds of things. That's not what we do, right? We really focus, and we're also not a new build contractor. So
I think that's the biggest misconception.
Yes, exactly. So we really have focused on restoration and repair. Sometimes that involves demolishing and rebuilding, right? Demo and rebuild of an addition or, a wall or something like that, but we're not going to build you a brand new home, right? We're not the masonry contractor for
Would
that.
it be a stretch to say, like, I can fix your house, I can't build your house though?
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. We